According to sources, Indigo chairman Damodaran has in fact brokered a resolution between the two promoters, that's Rahul Bhatia and Rakesh Gangwal. We've been tracking this entire corporate feud as it's been unfolding. In fact, you heard it first here on ET Now, and we'll try and get Nayanthara on the line for you shortly. But it's essentially that we are hearing that there has been some resolution that's been brokered between the two promoters. Remember, the tiff was largely on the back of course, external party agreements, and there was a lot of speculation with regards to really whether it was a battle for control. And both sides, of course, had come out with very accusatory comments, on either side with regards to the functioning of the airline. Nayanthara is on the phone line with us right now. Nayanthara, what's the latest, with regards to that resolution?
Yeah, good afternoon. So this is the information we're picking up right here on ET Now. Saraf is telling you how the promoters had a big falling out. There seems to be a resolution in sight. I'm going to be sending more flashes into the system, but we do understand the chairman, M Damodaran, who's the chairman of the board of Indigo Aviation, seems to have been successful in arriving at a resolution between the two co-promoters, Rakesh Gangwal as well as Rahul Bhatia. Remember, Rakesh Gangwal complained to SEBI, he complained to the Prime Minister's office, the Finance Ministry, that a Panti Dukan was being managed with better grace than Indigo. He has raised red flags on corporate governance. We're now being told that there's been a unanimous decision on increasing and expanding the board to 10 directors. And this is where it gets interesting. I'm going to be sending those flashes into the system. I'm going to request my producers to hear it as well, so we can put it out. The new composition of the board, as has been agreed to, will be as follows. They're currently 6-member board. It's going to have 10 directors in all, where Rakesh Gangwal will continue to have one nomination. There will be 4 independent directors. There are currently 2 independent directors on the board. There are going to be now 4 independent directors. 5 members will be nominated by Rahul Bhatia's Interglobe Enterprise, and that will include the CEO. So I'm going to repeat this again. 4 independent directors, up from the current 2 independent directors. Rakesh Gangwal still gets to have 1 seat on the board. And Interglobe Enterprises, from the current 3, is going to go up to 5, including the CEO. In fact, the Articles of Association will also be amended to reflect this change. So that's one important part of the resolution. The second one, to do with corporate governance. Remember, this is Rakesh Gangwal's main point where he spoke about things like the emperor having no clothes, a new code that's going to be put in place for corporate governance, where above a certain threshold, Interglobe Aviation, the owner of Indigo, will have to invite bids. The bids received will have to be scanned, not just by the audit committee, but the board, the entire board is going to have to submit its own opinion. Then there's going to be an external party of consultants who are going to give their view also on all of this. And then, if any of this has to be changed, when it comes to related party transactions, the independent directors alone will have a say. I would like to tell our viewers that this had been one major flashpoint between the two promoters, because Rakesh Gangwal wanted the golden vote. He wanted 50% plus 1 shareholder vote for any change in related party transaction. That's not going to be the case. This is what has been arrived at. So basically now the lawyers, all of them are going to be working together to put all of this in paper. This is the resolution, the details of which are only on ET Now at the moment. A resolution in sight being brokered by none other than the chairman, M Damodaran.
All right, that's the latest that we're getting with respect to the Interglobe Aviation spat, as Nayanthara has broken the story. Remember, we've been on top of each and every development. Now we understand, as Nayanthara just spelled out, that the feuding founders of Interglobe Aviation, that is Rahul Bhatia and Rakesh Gangwal, have worked towards a compromise formula, and that has resulted in every related party transaction being vetted by independent directors. We've also spoken about how there is going to have 1 nomination from Rakesh Gangwal and 4 independent directors from the current 2. 5 members will be nominated by Rahul Bhatia. Nayanthara, just give us, a few more details. I know you touched upon the Articles of Association as well being amended. What was that originally, and what are the changes that have been proposed on that front?
Aman, I can't tell you too much about the articles of association. I'm not privy to that. But having said that, like I said, the shareholder agreement, and this is, public knowledge, had to be renewed in October. However, and this, both sides have been saying that if there was no renewal that was signed, it would automatically stand to remain as is. So the big question we need to also ask is that was Rakesh Gangwal's entire grouse with the kind of premium that Rahul Bhatia has enjoyed when it comes to the board composition, the board nomination, has it really been about that? There is no jurisprudence in the world which deals with unfair contracts. We would also like to tell our viewers that the company secretary, Sanjay Gupta, had his meeting with SEBI on Monday. After all of this, you are seeing a new board composition that's going to take place, how the Articles of Associations are going to be amended. So what's this the entire fight? Have institutional investors and minority shareholders lost out under the garb of corporate governance with the erosion of the share price because the shareholder agreement had to be renewed? I think that's a big question mark, and one that Mr. Rakesh Gangwal owes to all shareholders of Interglobe. If he's agreeing to this resolution, which has been brokered by M Damodaran, then what's the entire fight about this? About control, about who gets to nominate how many members? Because that's certainly not fair to all of those that own shares of Indigo, the minority shareholders, as well as the institutional investors. I know our guest coordination team is trying to get experts on board. So till then, I take my viewers to the benefit, once again, of what we are reporting. A resolution that is being brokered by the chairman, M Damodaran.
In fact, Nayantara, we do have with us an expert. We have Mohit Saraf, partner, LNL Partners as well. And thank you so much for joining in. What we're understanding is now that the Indigo chairman, Damodaran, has tried to broker a resolution and has, in fact, between the two promoters. Can you just give us your take as to how you're reading into this? Because it's been a battle essentially about control by the two promoters.
I think whatever has come out till now and what I've heard just now is looking like more a personality issue, personality fight, and trying to better position than what Rakesh Gangwal had when he started the airline. I think he agreed to certain control right with Rahul Bhatia. Later on, in hindsight, he felt that it was not a good deal and he wanted to improve that position, and that is what really has happened. So he's been able to improve his position. But if you look at it, if these issues were so much of a big issue of related party transaction and minority investors actually being taken out and their interest being compromised, then a lot of contracts should have got cancelled, which are related party transaction, and Rahul Bhatia and his company should have paid for it, for getting extra advantage. None of these things really happened. So it was largely a battle of control, largely a battle of two founders agreeing to a position and then on hindsight realizing it's not a great deal they've got and trying to improve the position. And absolutely what you just said, that large part of minority institutional investors actually had to go through that movie, that what have they done and why are they in this company? Will this company ever sing song in the same way? Or two partners will fight and the wealth will get eroded. So I would say, and I think SEBI has a big role to play here, because really this is really disclosure outside the normal book where people have come out in public, disclosed issues, and I think this is also in a way would call a market manipulation. And I clearly believe that regulators should look at it very seriously and understand, maybe nobody is benefited, but by creating such a crisis in front of global investors and institutional investors and making them feel that one promoter was taking the company for a ride, getting a lot of advantage.
In fact, I want to take that conversation forward. I believe, Mohit, staying with us. Hetal Dalal is joining in. Hetal, I want to take you through what we are putting out right now. A resolution being brokered by the chairman of Indigo, M Damodaran himself, with the two co-promoters, Rakesh Gangwal and Rahul Bhatia. The nomination on the board is going to be as such now. 4 independent directors. Rakesh Gangwal gets to keep 1 seat. That means he's been diluted from the current 1/5 to 1/10. Having said that, Rahul Bhatia's Interglobe Enterprises will get 5 nominations, including the CEO. This is going to be reflected in the Articles of Association. The Pan Ki Dukan, the Emperor has no clothes claims being raised by Rakesh Gangwal. The new corporate governance norms will include this for the company. Above a certain threshold, bidding, the bids received will have to be scanned by the audit committee as well as an opinion of the board. After that, an external consultant will give the view. If you have any dilution, the independent directors have to look into it. Hetal, Dalal, could the fight between the two promoters, which resulted in a 20% erosion of market wealth made at the cost of the institutional investors and the minority shareholders, could it possibly have been only about all of this?
See, I think the issue is, it is a battle between the promoters, but the battle between the promoters, if you look at it, is also a function of what's affecting the company, right? A lot of the rights of the promoters are admitted in the Articles of Association. As a function of that, the board construct itself is a problem. When you look at earlier, the board structure had 6 board members, of which effectively 2 were independent, if you really want to call them so. And there were nomination rights or, that one part of the promoter group had, which is effectively 50% control of the board. This continues despite expansion of the board. The idea of expanding the board size was not that 50% of the board seat would still be controlled by one set of the promoters. The idea of expanding the board size was that you would have more independent directors on the board, which will provide more balanced views and greater oversight to the entire board functioning, whether it is related party transactions, whether it is the nomination and remuneration committee, and the entire effectiveness of the board would therefore improve. I think in this entire construct of saying that the board is going to expand to 10, but yet effectively the structure remains the same, where one side controls 50%, you have 6 seats effectively which belong to the promoter, 4 will be independent director, doesn't change that much. I think what needs to happen, and if you look at global best practices, board composition typically recommended is more than 50% independent directors. Indian regulations have their own construct of saying that, if the chairperson is independent, you have 1/3 independent directors, which is fine from a regulatory standpoint. But given that the issues which are being raised are now, beyond promoter fight, also the basic structure of the board and the governance issues, there is a question to be asked whether this is really addressing that.
Hetal, Dalal, Mohit, Saraf, hang in there. We're getting a lot of reactions to this breaking story. Tushar Cooper now joining us on the phone. Tushar, I do hope that our team has been able to take you through the details, but it seems as if a resolution is being brokered by M Damodaran, the chairman of Indigo, between Rakesh Gangwal and Rahul Bhatia, co-promoters of Interglobe Aviation. Board is being expanded to 10 directors. Rakesh Gangwal gets to keep 1 seat. Interglobe Enterprise of Rahul Bhatia will get 5 nominations from the current 3, including the CEO, 4 independent directors versus the current 2. Articles of Association will be amended. The new corporate governance norms will talk about related party transactions, which will mean that if there is above a certain threshold, which we've not been able to ascertain, it will be bid out. The audit committee will scan the related party transaction. The board has to give an opinion. If there's to be any dilution, it has to be decided by the independent directors. I'm going to put it very crudely to you, Tushar. Could this really have been the fight between the two promoters? Could it have just been this? Do you see this to be the end game when it comes to the fight between the two?
I don't believe that this was why the group raised these corporate governance issues with the Bhatia group. I think their intention was in order to have a more effective supervisory role of independent directors in the setup. If at the end of the day, the Bhatia group is still going to wind up with the same degree of control which it was exercising prior to this exercise, then that event, the entire purpose of this issue being raised is defeated. Now, of course, there is a legal aspect and a regulatory aspect which may well be complied with by the Bhatia group. But there is also an ethical perspective and a global best practice approach, or a good corporate governance approach, which would dictate that there were more independent directors appointed. The balance should be in favor of independent directors rather than in favor of one controlling group, which would then take decisions based on what it felt was in the interest of perhaps the group and not necessarily in the interest of the company and its shareholders. So I don't really think that this really satisfies the Gangwal group on what they have been raising.
So, there is, of course, a response has been provided to the market regulator, Tushad, over the weekend, which we don't have access to. We are also being told the company secretary met with the market regulator on Monday. So, what I want to ask you is that legally, if the chairman has been able to arrive at a resolution, what happens to the complaints of one co-promoter? Because on one side, he's talking about Pan Ki Dukaan, Emperor has no clothes, raising serious insinuations against his business partner, the chairman of the board, then reaches a resolution. Does that complaint still stand legally? Are the regulators still supposed to look into it? Or can he actually withdraw the complaint?
According to me, even if the complaint, okay, once again, there are two issues here. If this were a complaint which the minority group or the Gangwal group had raised in the NCLT, then obviously a withdrawal of the complaint or the petition would have resulted in a closure of the issue. Now, here there is an issue which has been raised with the regulators in which various acts of alleged wrongdoing or misdoings, etc., have been raised. Even if such a complaint were to be withdrawn, in the event there is substance in those complaints, the regulator could well be within its rights to look into the aspects. And for example, suppose that some complaints have been raised by a whistleblower, and these allegations are investigated and found to be of substance. The fact is the regulators would be constrained to take necessary action. So it's not as if necessary by saying that we have solved all our problems, etc., it would be closed out. But it is possible that the closure may be permitted on the issues which were being raised, but not that were wrongdoings, but that could be perceived to be wrongdoings in which matters were being conducted. So therefore, it's possible that they said, all right, in respect of related party transactions, any related party transactions, they would all require prior approval of maybe an audit committee or prior approval of the board, etc. Now, if these concerns are being addressed in the new sort of regime which is being proposed, then it is possible that the regulator may decide to close the matter. Because what had been raised, I don't think were specific instances of actual wrongdoing. What they said is that, look, we are not being given information. The lack of such information, the fact that there are such inter-party related inter-party transactions give rise to suspicion. The auditors who have looked into it, their report is not being shared with us. That gives rise to suspicion. So going forward, it is proposed these concerns be addressed. It is possible that the regulator may then keep its hands off this dispute.
I think the two co-promoters will still have a lot of explaining to do, including the initial complainant. If he has agreed to this resolution that has been brokered by M Damodaran, who Mr. Gangwal had also insinuated against in his complaint, and what was the entire issue about? On one side, you're raising issues and asking Indigo to be the poster child of corporate governance in the country, but on the other side, you're reaching a resolution. Is this in the larger interest? Was this really the fight all about? Have we really seen the end game? Is there more trouble that could exist between the two promoters, which we'll get to know about? I think in unanimity, we have all three panelists, Mohit, Saraf, Tushad Kapoor, as well as Dalal, who said it's not the end of it. With that, it's back to you guys in the studio.
All right, Nayantara, thanks so much for bringing us all the latest there. We're going to need to take a very quick break on that note. We'll come back and we'll take a look at how markets are doing. Indigo, of course, reacting to the news of a resolution coming in. Whether or not it's the end, we'll leave that an open question for now. Back in a moment.